one night, and I got in there at 4 or 5 o'clock and see that night. And then he did that, and then I said that night, and I come home, and it's $3,200 for the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, they're going broke. Oh, they're going broke.
And what about the doctor bill?
Well, that's on top of that. I don't know what the hell that was. Matter of fact, I haven't got his bill yet. I just had it done a while ago. I haven't got, but the hospital, they send the bill out just as quick as you get off the door. The bill's right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky you don't pick it up in the mailbox before you get home.
Well, you started talking about Moose River Village up here.
Yeah.
And it's something I had never heard of before.
What's that?
That Moose River Village. I'd never realized there was one up there.
Well, that was a very active village. They had, like I said,
probably the nearest thing to it would be Port Leyden and McKeever, and nothing otherwise of any size, was there?
Well, it wouldn't probably have been as big as Port Leyden, quite, but because it was more compact, you know, than Port Leyden would be, because it wasn't spread out. It wasn't a village that spread out much.
What did the people do that lived there?
Well, they worked in the
woods?
tannery.
On the tannery.
Oh yeah, that tannery was a lot of people worked in the tannery, you know.
And where did they get all their hides from?
Well, they bought hides in, I guess, and they get them from, I don't know where they came from, but they bought hides, and you see they'd buy hemlock bark, and when they cut, I can remember saving bark for, you know, for other tanneries. It wasn't, that one wasn't running, but I can remember of saving it 4-foot lengths, you see, of bark, and they ring the bark every 4 feet, and they pile that up, see, and then you got so much cord for hemlock bark, and that makes a tremendous hot fire, see, and that's what they had to have in order to...
Took a lot of heat to tan?
It had to take a lot of heat, because that's what they'd buy. I don't know the process or anything about it, and they had quite a few people, though, that worked in that tannery. And of course, some of them, I suppose, worked in the woods too, you know, that was there, and some of them in the sawmill. And
it seems every self-respecting village had a tannery.
Yeah, that was quite a deal here, this tannery.
Because there was one in Port Leyden, there was one in, I believe, Glenfield, one in Lowville. This one up here you mentioned?
Yeah, I think there was two sections of this tannery here. Up here, I think there was 2 places it was. Up beyond the mill, I thought there was one part of it, and then the other one was down beyond the old schoolhouse there, right on that bend. If you look, you can see they had a store, a grocery store right this side of that. They run a good grocery store. And his families lived all around the thing up there.
What do you think of the changes in the weather in the country as you remember them?
Well, the weather is so much milder, the winters are, than they used to be. We used to have a lot harder winter than we have now. Now we don't have hardly any winter compared to what we had. Back when I was a kid, always was about 5 feet of snow on the ground, you know. And
how did you get to school when it was that deep?
how did we get where?
To school.
Oh, well, back in those days, the roads was rural. And of course, we walked. We had to walk, but you know, there was an old barn about halfway up there, and I can remember how we'd get in there and warm up, you know. The wind would be so cold, you know, and you'd get in that old barn and out of the wind, and you'd warm up. Well, now you're going to finish walking down, and we'd dress warm, and you'd walk right along to keep warm, you know. But it was better than 2 miles of a walk, see, and so we'd have to walk up there, and every day back up to school.
Well, you've got a spring just down the road here, probably that's on your property, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's right down from the hill here. There's a good spring. A lot of people use it, but you know, the modern people, they're funny. There's those factors that just wants to destroy everything they can. They get a kick out of destroying anything, no matter what it is. They get a charge out doing it. You go down there and they'll, some of them will go in there and eat, and they take macaroni salad and scrape it off in the spring, you know. You go in there and the oil is on top of the water and the salad's in the bottom, and then you have to bail the spring out. And what kind of people are they, anyway?
Sick.
They do that, they think it's funny or good or something.
But is that, are the springs and is the water supply in the area as good as it used to be when we had more snow?
Well, of course that spring is good, yes. I'd say our water supply is about the same. My well don't seem to run dry. I have had it dry, but it hasn't in the last 3-4 years run dry.
How deep do you have to go for water
Well,
around
that's
here?
only 14 feet, that one there. But we got one out here was 30, and this was a good one, but it got a bad taste, so we closed it. No, I think, but of course the river, I can notice a tremendous difference in the height of the river. Oh, there is no comparison. The river years ago, it would be as much as 15, 18 inches right over the road. It would always flow in right over the road up there.
In the spring.
Yeah, and in the driving time, you know, it'd be wet, you know, you couldn't, them people there, they had, that lived up there coming to school, they'd circle along through the woods around that pond, you know, they'd come in there, work in the backside of it, in order to go through there, but it would...
Would that have anything to do with the dams at, up McKeever and so forth? Because they would dam the river up to let the logs through.
Yeah, that, of course that dam went out up there. And boy, that's when there was water going down through here. When that dam went out, took the bridges out down below and everything. And down the river was running down Fall Brook over here because it overflowed in Fall Brook. And so it was really something when that dam went out. That was quite a thing. But in every year we'd have an awful high water, and you could hear the river over. You go out here in the yard and you'll hear it roaring down over there in the froth hole. You can hear the log even booming down through the river. One of my poems. Arrangements anyway, I say poem, but one of the arrangements does cover Moose River. And it's in this, I wrote, you know, on Moose River. And it's really nice. That river is.
Can you get his arms and everything to do swing with either one, or?
Yeah, his arms. He does that when he talks about going down to the tavern. Then he gets his arms a-going. I said, when he thinks about going to the tavern, I don't know if it's whiskey or women or what, but he gets excited. And then he said, well, how about when he comes home? Well, I said, that's different. old mule. That other stick is in my case. I didn't get it out. Let's get that other stick. This is the old gray mare. As I said, you'll never have arthritis. See, now I'll show you how he. Now I'll shorten that board and you'll see how much faster he is.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, it does make a difference when your board is short.
And this is the old house that burned.
Yeah.
That you mentioned here. And the old barn's out and back.
Yeah. I just want to see if that thing is in tune. Just hold it a minute. That still's out of tune. Just a little, just a minute. You gotta wait. See, it is off. I don't know what the hell is. Sounds terrible because this thing ain't in tune. It's just a little out of whack. Then you just ping, ping, pings, and it's right there perfect.
Doesn't sound terrible to me.
It's terrible. I wish I could know what the hell the game was. And you'd right, you know, and I know it ain't. It sounds all right. Out there. And that's about the right pitch for that, see? You can tell that. But it's in lower strings, I think. See? In my ear, it's now up for the night there, like. See, that worked better now.
Yeah.
That's in tune now.
Uh-huh.
See? You get that perfect harmony. See? Oh, many years have come and gone since I wandered from my home. In the Oklahoma hills where I was born. And a lesson I have learned as a page of life it turns. Yet I feel like in those hills I still belong. Oh, way down yonder in an Indian nation, I ride my pony on the reservation. Oh, my hills where I was born. Oh, way down yonder in an Indian nation, a cowboy's life is my occupation. Oh, my hills where I was born. If I should take today, many miles I'd be away from the place where I rode my pony through the draw. And the oak and blackjack trees kiss a playful prairie breeze. And the Oklahoma hills where I was born.
Very good.
Yeah. I live my life as a logger. See how nice that? See that's the right tune now, isn't that nice? Oh, I was born in the mountains, now out where the nights have legs, where the old owl speaks in English and the roosters lay square eggs. I shaved my beard and mustache the morning I was born, and that might beat up my old man and drank his rye and corn. Oh, I'm a truthful fella, they call me True Blue Bill. Never told a falsehood, and you bet I never will. I had some great adventures, I sailed the 7 seas. I seen men-eating monsters from lions down to fleas. I swam the wide Pacific and walked around the moon. And I waded 30 feet of snow on the 41st of June. Oh, I'm a truthful fella, they call me True Blue Bill. Never told a falsehood, and you bet I never will. One time, let's see, one time when I was shipwrecked in an island right up to a tree. They danced and beat their tom-toms and they got rather rough. But they said that I wouldn't make a stick 'cause I was too darn tough. Oh, the father of our country wouldn't tell a lie, and he was my great uncle, so I'll ask you, why should I? I'm not much on singing.
Learned that one when you were growing up, huh?
Of course, it was some of the cough medicines. The earlier ones was Mother used to use Mother Gray's warm powders, you know. She'd feed us those things. I can remember. And that's years ago. And then, of course, we used to have the cloverine salve. And you'd put a poultice on with that, or mustard. Sometimes she'd mix up, if she wanted to put a heat into it, but she'd put the mustard in there to give us the heat. But usually if you had a bad cold in the chest, Mother'd always want to put a plaster on the outside. I guess she thought she could draw it right out instead of having to go the other way.
Yeah.
Do you know how these mustard plasters were made?
No, she mixed mustard, the ground mustard into it, whatever it was, and she put that on, and boy, I'm telling you, that would be hot. You had to watch it would blister you, you know. If you got it too hot, it'd blister. And she put that on, and of course they used castor oil back in those days. That thing. My dad, of course, he liked the Epsom salt. He would take a half a cup, a spoon, and he eats it right down out of the cup. Man, he liked it that way. Isn't that funny? Dry. And I know one time Eddie Cormier come up here, and he said to me, Uncle Charlie, he said, I was taking some Epsom salt, and he says, I want some of that. And I said, no, you don't want that. That's the worst taste. And no, let me have some. He said, give me just a little bit. And of course, it's dry, and I put it on his tongue. Well, say, he went right up to the ceiling. Boy, he spit and spit. He couldn't see how anybody could take that stuff. But it was comical. He was insistent on having some Epsom salts. But, I tell you, the remedies wasn't so much different than they are today. That is, it was cough medicine. One thing, we used to have a peddler that came along here, and he sold all kinds of cough medicines and things like that. His name was Thorpe, and he had a horse. And I remember he had a kind of a big box built on that, just right for his and he'd have everything in there, vanilla and cinnamon and mustard and all the spices, and he'd have some candy, and he had everything, you know, in there. And I can hear his voice. He had a kind of a low voice. I can hear right in my ear today, and he'd stay with us sometimes. But boy, I remember when his cart come, how we kids would like to go out and get the smell of that cart. And Mother'd say, well, I'll have some Jamaica ginger. Now, you can't buy that today, you know. But she always had Jamaica ginger. And then about this ginger ale, well, she'd put the dry ginger in the water, ice water, and stir that up with sugar. And she'd make the ginger ale. And when we'd be out haying, boy, that tasted good to us, that ice water, you know.
Switchel.
Yeah, and she'd make that. And it was good. Well, we had quite a time growing up. Our family was very close. That's one thing I will say. We certainly was a close family. That we'd do anything for the other one, and and there's no complaining.
No. Did you play many games?
Yeah, well, the games, oh yeah. Well, when we'd get done, you know, with the chores, then we'd have to go out and play. At night we'd play hide and go seek, or we'd play duck on the rock, or anything like that. We had a seesaw out there, and we'd board, you know, you go up and down on the board there, teeter boards. And but hide and go seek was quite a bit, and then there was I can't think of the other games that we used to play, but we played a game called Black Magic. And I don't know if you ever saw that folder or not, but you could come in this room and you can pick out anything you want. I don't care what it is. And the other guy will come in and tell you what you picked out.
I've played it before.
Yeah. Then they used to have lead. Did you ever play lead?
No.
Well, that's another game they had.
How'd that go?
Well, that was crazy. It was just a crazy game. You'd have a broom, and you had to make the other guy laugh. That was the object. And you'd take probably the broom, you'd tap on the floor. You'd say, did you ever, you like George McIntyre? And she'd sit there, yeah, I like George McIntyre. Did you ever kiss George McIntyre? No, I didn't kiss him. Oh, just think what fun it'd be. And you go on and you describe something, first thing, hee 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 hee. You know, they couldn't take it any longer. And they'd laugh. And then you'd win, see. Of course, later on, what we was playing more was inside, we'd be playing cards. We'd love to play cards, a bunch of us, and dominoes and checkers. Those was the main things that we'd play in the land of games. We'd play cards, you start in right after supper, you know, and the dishes are done, and play right through to 11 o'clock at night on cards. And we'd play dominoes. Dominoes is good for Dad, you know. He'd learned that pretty good. And of course, we was pretty good in checkers at that time.
Were any of the rest of your family musical?
Oh yeah. Gene used to play the violin. He played at the dances, you know. Gene did. He could play a lot better than I ever could. And he used to play at the dances. Tom played at the dances too. Tom was good with the violin. Yeah, both of them was a lot better than I ever was. And one time Bill played a little on the violin, but Bill wasn't so. Tom was very good on the violin, and so was Gene. But that was their end of they just played the violin.
Did your family sing together?
Well, sometimes, but not too much. We never sang much together. We'd sing separately, but not much together. Make noise, you don't sing. I never could sing. I bit monkeyed around, but they. Gene was a good singer, and he could play and he could call for the dances. He was a good caller. He had good clear voice, you know. But I never went to the dances. So just to watch them, I'd go and watch them dance. When Blins used to have the dance down here, and then at Porter's Corners, they had a dance hall down there, and every Saturday night, the dance would be on. It didn't cost you nothing. You go down and sit and watch them dance. And they had an orchestra. Bus Lockwood from Boonville was a violinist, and he was a good violin player. And Kitty Ward, she was the one on the piano, I think, and Billy Foster played harmonicas and drum. And they played for them every Saturday night, and they used to play. Billy used to play the harmonica. He was a pretty good harmonica player, and we used to enjoy to go down and sit and watch them dance. But I never danced, and never learned to dance. It wasn't worth the effort.
Where did you meet your wife?
Well, she was a local girl, and she used to come over to my sister's over to Ellen's when I first met her. And she came over there. She used to be over to Ellen's a lot. And eventually we got together. Finally he got married. It didn't work out like the old fellow and the girl there, the woman, they got married. And they got in an argument all the time, the old fellow and the old woman. And finally the old man says, I've had enough of this now. He said, I'm going right out and I'm going to build myself a place right out there back at the barn. He said, you can stay right here. So he goes out back at the barn, he builds a place and little shack, and he's out there, and the salesman comes. He says, where's Mr. So-and-so? He calls him by name. Oh, she said, he's in that little shack out back at the barn. And he says, well, I go and I want to see him. So he went out there and he went inside, and boy, there were the pies. He had pies on the table, and he was a great cook, you know. And he had everything. He had some cookies and pies, and boy, and the salesman, he looked at that, and he said, he looked again, and he said, well, he said, I see you're kind of interested in them pies, he said, and stuff. Yes, he said, I was kind of wondering about it. Well, let me tell you something, he says, that old woman in there, nobody in the world could live with her, but she makes an awful good neighbor. She's the one that's making the pies. She makes an awful good.
She at least took care of them yet.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Uncle Ezra, you know, he was a great woman chaser. And he was after all the women, and finally he got a letter in the mail, and it said to him, if you don't leave my wife alone, I'm going to shoot you. Well, boy, there's nothing in the world could stir him up as much as that. And so he was telling his friend about it, and why, he said, Ezra, he said, nothing to that. He said, just leave his wife alone. Yeah, he said, but he didn't sign his name to it. Boy, that was the tough part. He didn't know who to leave alone. But nevertheless, you know, he did get a young girl to fall in love with him. He was 75 and she was only 18. And she really loved him, and so he went home and he was telling the kids, he said, we're going to get married, he said. And oh my gosh, he said, Dad, you can't do that. He said, you know, that could be fatal. He said, well, he said, that's all right. He said, if she dies, I'll marry another one. You know, he said, he wasn't afraid that he was going to kick the bucket.
No.
When we first came, you were telling us about how steep the countryside was around here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, I was reading this article about the fellow that had the steep, it's in there, see, where he had the steep hills, and it said that it came in kind of handy because when he turned his cows loose, why, he could look up through the stovepipe and see his cattle to see that they were all right. And he was, those hills are somewhat like West Virginia. Out there, I told, when I come back, I said, you know, they don't bury them in West Virginia the same as they do here. I said, they dig a round hole and they stand them up in there, and I said, then they put a tire around their neck so they don't slip down the hills. But they don't believe me, somebody.
They don't, I wonder why.
I don't know. I tell the story once in a while.
You were telling how they planted their potatoes too, wasn't it?
Well, yes. Well, of course, that old fellow, that's the way he did. The hill was so steep, he said he always planted them up and down like that on the hill so they were sliding in. He said then when they got ready to dig, he always just dug off the bottom hill and the rest come right down to him. He never had any trouble picking up potatoes. They come right down the hill to him. That's quite a hill that he lived on. But, oh, they had some great stories years ago, you know.
Well, you've been around the woods, and you've been around a lot of areas. You've met a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Can you remember some of them and tell us about them?
Well, this old George McIntyre that I mentioned earlier, he was a big, raw-boned old guy, and he lived around here. But he was crazy about drinking. You know, he loved to drink, you know. And especially cider. We used to make cider. Well, he'd take and you'd get up and old George would be drunk, and you'd wonder how he got drunk, and he would be in that cider, see, when the cider got hard. So Jarvis, my brother-in-law, says he was a Frenchman. He said, I'll fix him. He says, well, I'll take that barrel of cider right back in my bedroom. He takes it in the back room. And he says he won't get into that again. And old George was drunk the next day or so. And Jarvis said something about the thing, and well, he said, where did you have the cider? Said old George. He said to Jarvis, yeah, right in his room. He said, somebody got in there, and well, said old George, they must have had bearskin moccasins on if they got in there. And what he did is he took the bit and he bored a little hole and he stuck a straw right in there and he sucked that cider out. And then he took and he drawed, when he got the thing a-going, he drawed a pan full and he took the pan away. He went with a pan full of it as long as it would run. Boy, George, he liked cider. But he was quite a character. Then old Billy Moran up here, he was an old Irishman that lived alone. And he lived up where Hall is staying now, across the bridge up there. There was he had a little cabin that they stayed in up there. And he used to come down, he had an old horse. And one day he come in with the old horse and he got out and he didn't tie the horse or nothing. And so Tom said to him, Billy, he said, do you think that horse is going to stand there? Well, he said, yeah, you stand there if you don't fall down. He didn't think the horse was going to run away. He was an old horse. He was quite a character. They, up there in Moose River Village, where the post office used to be, that was Moore's Camp. They had that, and now they call it Mac's. It's sold again to, I guess it's Mac's Camp. But that used to be the post office, see? And right across the road from it, Moyers lived over there, and they had cattle. And the cattle was always right past that camp. Well, old Dad Moore was an old gentleman, you know, big raw-boned guy, great big fella. And old Billy was a little bit of a short Irishman, you know. And he said, Billy Gore, every morning, 5 o'clock, here, boss, he's right beside his window. And he'd wake up the old guy. Well, he'd, cow boss, he'd be calling the cows. And finally, he said, I wish you wouldn't do that, said old Dad. He said, you wake me up, he said, and of course, Billy wasn't paying attention, you know, he would be. And so, this kept going on, and finally, old Dad thought he would go out there and he'd give him a kind of a thumping up. Billy happened to have a pail in his hand, and when old Dad got near enough, he hives him with that pail. And then he had him, you know, he couldn't see one way or the other. He gave the old guy a rough time. There. Yeah, that's quite a deal. But the old schoolhouse up there, it run down from 65 kids till it got down to 1.
And they still ran it for one?
Yeah, they run for 1 kid. But then they consolidated it, and they put us in with the, first of all, we went in with Prince Settlement. And then from there you go into South Lewis, see. And we didn't like the idea. We tried to keep this, they imported kids here to keep it running, you know. And we tried our best to keep it running because we knew that you get in with that school, then the taxes would boom. Of course, you couldn't avoid it anyway.
You say you went from directly into South Louis, or were you into the Port Leyden district first?
Well, Port Leyden.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went Port and then you go to South Louis. It's kind of a progressive step.
About what time did that school close?
Well, let me see. Up here, I'm not just sure. 26. It'd probably be about 32, somewhere around there, 30, 31, 32, somewhere around there, because, let me see, in 26, yeah, 26, I was out of it. And,
when you had 65 kids there, how many teachers did they have?
Well, just the one, I guess. Yeah, they had a lot of different teachers. I remember they had Martha Hammond, and they lived where that in that Max camp too. That's where they lived.